What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, talking today about Fallout 76 because I've seen a very hard question starting to float around the community, which is, at this point, can Fallout 76 even be saved? The game is, well, it's obviously a complete dumpster fire. It's broken, and the more they try and patch it, the more it seems to get increasingly flawed. Some recent updates that were supposed to fix glitches ended up causing even bigger problems. People have discovered that it seems like the servers themselves are starting to begin to crumble from the inside. So what does this mean? Well, I think that it means that Fallout 76 might be beyond the pale. It may be just too shredded to even keep moving forward. So people are starting to say, at this point, wouldn't it be best if they just canceled the game, admitted that they screwed up, and instead began work on Fallout 5? I think that this idea is not completely wrong, but for me personally, I'm actually hoping for something a little bit different. So recently I've started playing a bunch of Final Fantasy XIV again. Now, this game actually has a lot in common with Fallout 76. That sounds very random, but walk with me with this for a second. So basically, when FF14 originally launched, it was destroyed. It was terrible. It was basically unplayable in every single way. Zones were way too big, way too empty, and there just wasn't enough quests to keep you invested in the lore of this universe. But over time, they realized that the only way to properly fix this was to theoretically crash the car and buy a new one, which is what they ended up doing. Square Enix decided to shut down Final Fantasy XIV, redevelop the entire game from the ground up, and launch it again as a Realm Reborn, a new project that shared a similar name. And funny enough, it absolutely worked. This new version of Final Fantasy XIV is great. I mean, it's so good, and what's interesting is it even works on consoles. I'm playing this on a PlayStation 4. I think that that's what we need to see with Fallout 76. At this point, the servers are collapsing. People aren't playing the games, people aren't invested, and let's face facts, they were really depending on people probably buying their really stupid, greedy microtransactions. So the fact that no one's actually investing in this, financially or time-wise, shows that their project is already a failure. In order to properly reinvigorate stuff, I think that they need to try and follow in the footsteps of Final Fantasy XIV. Now, I'm saying this specifically because I think a lot of people are hoping that we get instead a Sea of Thieves scenario where the game gets revived a year later with a giant update, or something along the lines of No Man's Sky, where 2 years into the project, they suddenly get fixed. But 76 can't have this. I think that Fallout 76's biggest problem is that at its core, it is not enjoyable to play. It is a giant, very empty sandbox with no motivation to stay here, to care, to level up, to get factions. And it makes it where the deeper you get into Fallout 76, strangely enough, the less you care. I actually played 50 hours of Fallout 76, and now on the other side of that journey, you could not pay me to log back in. I bet they're trying to improve it, but from the outside, I just can't care anymore. I think that what they need to do is reboot it. Restart the project. Will this be the more expensive route? Absolutely. This is going to cost them way more, but in my opinion, this is the only path that can even remotely salvage what's happened here. I mean, just taking a step back, keep in mind a lot of Fallout YouTubers, the people who do nothing but talk about Fallout, at this point have given up. The franchise to them is just cooked. Like a good buddy of mine, Mr. Matty Plays, this guy is an amazing YouTuber, and he really kind of blew up because originally he was talking about Fallout 3, New Vegas, and 4, but with Fallout 76, he has officially declared that he's done with it, simply because it bores him. There's nothing in there anymore that's actually got meat on the bones. If your biggest, most hardcore fan base is abandoning you, you know that it's time for a complete revamp. Now, I think that this is still a proper route. I still think that if they tried to jump straight into Fallout 5, they might be accidentally carrying a lot of bad ideas. I think the biggest issue with Fallout 76 from a developer standpoint is it really seems like Bethesda is happy with this project. It seems like they are thrilled with what the game is. They're not thrilled with how people hate it, but I bet that deep down, they think that this is a good idea. A fully multiplayer Fallout to them is probably the pinnacle of their projects. It's Bethesda plus online multiplayer. What could go wrong? Well, unfortunately, everything. Having a world where literally no one is alive is something that very obviously is blown up in their faces. And I think that if they tried to jump straight into Fallout 5, my worry is that they're going to carry along this mentality. Even if it ends up not being multiplayer, I have to feel like right now their frame of mind is just not clear. They're just too obfuscated with what they think is the correct path. Bethesda is somebody that used to be the absolute kings of story writing. I mean, they would manage to make thousands and thousands of quests in every one of their games, and each one felt unique. It always felt like this was so perfectly constructed, it seemed like you were the first person ever to find it, to beat it, to absorb this great knowledge. Whereas Fallout 76 has such paltry writing that I'll admit that for the last couple hours of it, I was skipping the quest descriptions and just following quest markers. I was just trying to do it for the loot. That's all I really cared about. So I think that what I worry is that this mentality will start to bleed over into other Bethesda works. Like, what if they start trying to make it where The Elder Scrolls 6 has some sort of co-op mode? Or what if they end up trying to make half the project single player and half of it a big multiplayer sandbox? Like, imagine if they started trying to make something that felt like The Elder Scrolls Online built within the world of Elder Scrolls 6. It is not a combination that would work. I mean, just getting back on the subject real quick of Final Fantasy XIV, part of the reason that this project really functioned and is really miraculous to play is that this is built on fan expectation. This game is actually built in a way that makes it where everybody is extremely happy. Not only is it fun, not only is it cool that you have so many different classes, but also on top of that, there is a lot of fanfare. They've actually done tie-in events with Final Fantasy XII. Final Fantasy XV is about to appear in this universe. Characters from Final Fantasy VII, you can get their gear. And it makes it where if you are a fan of anything Final Fantasy, you can get something special out of 14. And I think that that was the original intention of Fallout 76. It was supposed to be this culmination. It was supposed to be the ultimate victory dance of every single little Lego piece of the Fallout series combined together to make this giant new project. And instead what they ended up with is something that's just so lackluster, it is still baffling to me. What's happened with Fallout 76 is something that, in my opinion, cannot be fixed by simple patches. It can't be fixed by paid expansion packs. We are to the point where the game needs to be restarted. It needs something so fundamentally groundbreaking that it basically becomes a new game. This is the only thing that can fix that problem. And it's hard to really see this as any other way. I mean, Fallout 76 at this point is a failure. I mean, to the point in which this is probably the last time I'm ever going to talk about it, because as much as I'm fascinated by what they tried to do with it, we can't really ignore the fact that it did not succeed on any level. It didn't make them money, it didn't really make anybody happy, and now people aren't even really enjoying it. You know what's kind of funny is, looking back at the talk before launch, a lot of people were speculating that Fallout 76 was going to be the biggest Bethesda game ever. That is a real thing that a lot of people were starting to guess, is because Fallout 76, from the outside, seemed to be doing the bold moves that people like. A giant multiplayer-only game? Yeah, that'd be cool. Oh my gosh, it's a Fallout MMO. This is exactly what we crave. And then they ended up just botching it so badly. When you have something like this, where the errors are so baked into the cookie dough, you just can't enjoy the original flavor anymore. It's something where I really don't believe that anything can fix this other than a full restart. Rebrand it. Maybe make something called Fallout 777, where you just actually rebuild the game, but with actual NPCs and actual quests and actual cool loot. Make big raids. Make some stuff that actually feels like a big RPG. Yes, this will take a lot of work. Yes, this is going to basically have to make you redo the entire game. But if you want to save the project, at this point, I think that is the only path that is before you. Patches can't fix this. Expansions can't fix this. Fan love can't fix this. Fallout needs a giant overhaul, but I do believe that you can do it. create the Fallout MMO we actually want. Make this game the Final Fantasy XIV of Fallout. But what do you guys think? Are you somebody that's just totally exhausted by Fallout 76, or are you still trying to play it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Hey, if you guys are going to KatsuCon next week, let me know. I'm actually going to be at KatsuCon, and I want to do a giant meetup. I've never done a meetup before. If you're going to KatsuCon, Google it. I'll be there. Bye. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.